Sure.
Good morning. I'd like to call this emergency meeting of the Hemet City Council to order. Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Brown?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Krupa?
Here.
Councilmember Meyer?
Here.
Councilmember Percival?
Here.
Councilmember Wright?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, and would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mayor Pro Tem.
Please place your right hand over your heart and repeat a pledge to our flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, obviously this is a bit of a unique situation and one that I hope that we don't have to repeat too often. But under the circumstances, we felt it necessary to call this emergency meeting and consider a resolution proclaiming the existence of an emergency situation and local emergency due to the worldwide spread of the COVID-19 virus. And at the conclusion of our discussion and a presentation by our city manager, we will adjourn into a closed session. So, city manager?
So just a point of clarification. I know Eric's on the line, but one of the items that the mayor just mentioned was that we would like to, after this public portion of the meeting is conducted, go into closed session. So is there anything that we have to do logistically to make that happen, Eric?
Hello, everybody. You'll need to add that as an item that arose subsequent to the preparation of the agenda. I think, unfortunately, when we did the agenda and the resolution, we didn't have the benefit of seeing either the CDC's recommendation to go to events not larger than 50, nor did we have Governor Newsom's press conference in which he talked about the closure of bars and restaurants and pubs and so forth. And so that kind of constitutes new information, and staff might have to brief council on those items as well as items related to city facilities today. So if we could add a closed session that has to do with threat to public facilities and services, that is provided for under the Government Code, Section 54957, so paragraph A, and that would be consultation with the Director of Emergency Services, the Attorney, Fire Chief, and Police Chief. You would need to add that by a 4/5 vote, and then you could go into closed session subsequent to your public meeting.
I will make a motion that we add the closed session item to the agenda per the government code that was just stipulated by our city attorney.
Second.
I have comments before we go and vote on this. Why does it need to be closed session? It's not like it's a secret what we're doing, right?
I think there are particulars with respect to some of the items that came about with Governor Newsom's order, as well as items that have come about since then that we'll need to.
The public all heard the same.
That we'll need to discuss in closed session.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to add a closed session to the agenda. Please do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Meyer?
No.
Councilmember Percival?
Yes.
Councilmember Wright?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Krupa?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
That motion passes.
The other item, Eric, if you could chime in as well. I know it's an emergency meeting. We do have at least one member of the public here. Requirements to have the opportunity for the public to comment on this agenda. I know it wasn't listed here, but is it something that needs to be added as well?
I know if there are any members of the public who want to comment on the resolution, the mayor can ask for that at the appropriate time when you call them
Okay. Thank you, Eric. All right, so thank you, Mayor. With that being said, the item before you is a resolution authorizing or proclaiming the existence of an emergency situation and local emergency due to worldwide spread of COVID-19. The second item is to discuss other emergency actions the council may decide to consider pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2. As it's been seen around the world and particularly in the state of California and the United States, COVID-19 continues to pose a significant threat to our community and the larger community surrounding our area. Based on a collaborative discussion that we've been having throughout the last few weeks, including our emergency services personnel, as well as our emergency services coordinator, as well as legal, we felt that based on the circumstances and based on the number of closures that are happening throughout the state, that it was imperative that the city council weigh in on this resolution and really provide the opportunity for me as the emergency services manager for the community to implement whatever is needed to address some of the concerns that exist here, specifically in our community. I know in our community in particular, we have a number of senior citizens. We have a number of individuals that do have health concerns that, in terms of the risk that it poses to the average citizen, may not be as great as it is for those that have underlying health conditions or those that are elderly. And so that is the reason why we have this item before you. We have both our our police chief as well as our fire chief as well as our emergency services coordinator that are here today to provide any commentary. I know that public safety is a top concern for me as well as the community, and so there's a number of items that we have done in terms of our boots on the ground to ensure that they stay safe throughout our community, and both of them are here to answer any questions should you have any. I should also urge that I sent an email earlier to the city employee team this morning that this, it seems alarming, it seems very drastic, but if you look at the bones of the resolution, authorizes the city council to look at teleconferencing and encouraging social distances between individuals. So we will be looking at items such as teleconferencing. I know we've utilized that here too.
Did we state for the record we checked the teleconferencing for today?
Yes, it's up right now.
Okay, but I mean, for the record, so everybody that's watching knows that we did check it for people?
Yes.
And public comment?
Yeah, well, I think when the resolution comes up, that's when the public comment will be there. But
I mean, it's announced on this meeting. They can either be here or call in.
Correct. So the time for them to speak is when the resolution is before the council. So just as it is for the rest of the community here. So we are doing a few different things operationally in terms of making sure that the public has access to our meetings, but still maintaining social distances that is provided by the CDC. So as an immediate item, what we did was we created the teleconference number so that individuals could call in, provide comments as appropriate, and that is included on the city's agenda. So with that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might have, as well as any questions the council might have for our police or fire chief.
Any questions or comments from council?
I have a comment. I hope that our meeting today does not make or cause more panic in our community, because the community reaction across America is out of control. And so people need to think of their neighbors, and they need to just plan for a week like they normally would, grocery-wise. Because when we have elderly people walking out of the grocery store crying because they can't find toilet paper, but someone else may have tons of it at home, these type of situations are in each citizen's control. And so people don't need to be stockpiling, and, our water isn't stopping coming out of the fountains. There are many things that cause panic, and having another meeting today and causing, we need to be clear that this is not what we're trying to do here.
Well, I totally concur with your sentiment on that, and it's my hope, actually, that by having this emergency meeting and having our discussion will lend a sense of calm to the community, because I agree that there's been in my opinion, a significant overreaction, probably stimulated by mainstream media and the hype and the perpetual reporting. Obviously, people need to be informed, and they need to make prudent choices about what they do to protect their own health and the health of their friends and neighbors and family members. But I'm hoping that by holding this meeting, we can try to instill a sense of calm and rational behavior by all of our public, not just the Hemet community.
And I'd just like to add on to that some of the things that have come out on social media over the last few days, and Carly, you hit the nail on the head with that one, that encouraging our grocery stores and such to possibly limit the number of items that people come in and purchase, to discourage hoarding of certain items. But also on that note, there's been a lot of comments, especially on next door to the area that I belong to, because it includes several senior communities, and the outreach to their neighbors and offering to run errands or to take them to, get food for them or whatever. It's amazing what the outpouring is, and it shows the extremely good, generous, caring side of, crimely. Both my phones are ringing at the same time. It shows what a good community we have. And I think that is one of the things we need to remember and to rely on, that we are a community of caring people, and, we're there to help. And I would agree with that. I'm over 65. I am healthy. Took my temperature this morning, 98.1. And I'm available also to run errands, to get groceries. So, yeah, I think we're all here to help, and we need to get that word out that this is not Armageddon. What is it? Not the end of the earth. Armageddon, that one.
Yeah.
But that we do need to be cautious. We do need to be careful. But, again, we're going to get through this. So thank you.
Michael.
I think that all the comments that I've heard this morning are right on. It's my concern is the mass hysteria that's been created via social media and through the media. I am by no means a healthcare professional. I think that if somebody has a concern, if they might be infected or if they're concerned about getting infected, I think this is a conversation that individual needs to have with their doctor, and not listening to all the hysteria that's on social media and on the media. It's something that this is a conversation for an individual to have with their physician, and that's where that concern lies. As far as the government's role, I think that from what I've heard from the president and from the governor is that they're starting to become a little bit of an overreach. That's my personal opinion, and I think that by us, the action that we take to close any public facility, government-owned facility, I think is appropriate. But I think that when government now takes on the role that they're going to take over hotels and giving orders to private business to close, I think that's completely inappropriate. It goes back to the individual to use some sense in keeping themselves safe, and again, consult with their physician and not fall into the hype and hysteria that's being created out there. It has detrimental harm to our community. I think that, the big question is that when the government now orders businesses to close, who's going to pay their bills? Because there's no relief for mom and pop businesses that are out there that are trying to put kids through college or pay their bills day to day. When government comes in and says, shut down your business, okay, well, they still have bills to pay. And that's my concern with all the hysteria that's going on around. Again, I mean, my position is, if you are concerned, consult with your physician.
Well, I certainly agree with a lot that my colleagues have conveyed, but again, we also need to look at our senior demographic, and I certainly would like to see the grocery stores open 2 hours ahead for seniors to go in and not be in a panic and not have to stand in long lines. I think that would be appropriate. Again, most of the suggestions that have been made by the governor are simply that, suggestions, a lot of it, and not quite directives, total directive to some point. And to Mike's point, it's up to all of us to individually determine what is best for us on a number of levels. So, and again, to speak on what Mayor Pro Tem indicated with regards to helping our neighbors, that's another number one priority for those of us. Now, there's some of us that are over 65. The majority appears over 65. But in any event, but I wouldn't be taking advantage of this grocery stores opening early. I'd leave that for those that are desperately in need of that. But in any event, again, as a community, we've always stepped up to the plate when the community was in need, and we should expect that to continue.
Thank you for your comments and input. I totally agree, and I'd like to just underscore the point that I think Michael started with. It's personal accountability, and that's something that I think has been dying off in society, is personal accountability. Everything seems to be somebody else's fault, and I'm not responsible for anything or any of the consequences, and it's exactly the opposite. What we do with our lives, whether it's dealing with our personal hygiene and health or our conduct out in society, it's on us, and it's up to each individual to behave responsibly, and that has to do with if they feel sick, consulting with their physician, and personal responsibility when you're shopping. You go buy what you need, and you be respectful of other people, and we'll get through this just fine.
One more thing. The other important thing is the self-quarantining. Anybody with the symptoms need to have enough self-control to stay home. Because too many times, whether it's people that have traveled or people that have the cough and fever, shortness of breath, and they don't call their physician and they go here and go there, and it's horrible, and nobody wants to have to stay home, but thinking of others, they should heed that warning. That would help a lot.
The other thing I want to add is that although the city of Hemet doesn't have any confirmed cases, we see this as a proactive measure that the city could take to try and deal with it on the front side and prevent potential future exposures for the city of Hemet. So that's why we see this as being very proactive. What are the things that the city of Hemet can do to help limit other individuals from dealing with this? And so it's really a proactive measure that the city of Hemet is taking to deal with this and move forward in the community as well.
Okay, with that, we do have a resolution before us, and there was one small typo on page 4. I've communicated that to our city clerk, and he'll have a revised version. It was just one word missing on page 4, line 18, where it refers to the President of the United. The word states is going to be added into that. So we do have the resolution before us, resolution number 2020-018, which is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Hemet proclaiming the existence of an emergency situation and local emergency due to the worldwide spread of COVID-19. So may I have a motion on this resolution?
So we do have members on the line, and then we do have at least one member of the public that's here at the council chamber.
And I want to talk about some wording in here too.
Okay, do we have any members of the public in our physical audience here that wants to comment on this resolution? Okay, seeing none, I'll refer to our city clerk. Do you have any comments forthcoming from telecommuting?
Are there any members of the public that are by teleconference to have public comment on this item?
Well, since I'm on it, I will comment.
And your name is, ma'am?
Judy Rice.
Oh.
Having gone through teleconferencing things before, if you want to do this in the future, I would suggest something like Zoom or Maestro so that you can have documents visible to people and you can garner comments in the chat room. And it might be actually a physically better way to go, but the resolution itself is fine. I just don't think I expected a little more, and never mind. The resolution is all you're doing now.
Yep. Thank you for your comment.
Are there any other comments? All right, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Marley, Myers, Marley? Myers,
Right?
that's a hybrid name. Councilmember Meyer,
That's
you have
fine.
comments.
Yes, on page 4, on the bottom of page 4, we have the superintendent, and I don't think that the information is incorrect, but I do think it is important to know that they're not resuming school until April 13th. That is, Easter vacation is actually incorporated into part of this quarantine time. So we have children out of school for 4 weeks. That's awesome, with nothing to do. Hopefully we don't see, hopefully our new chief of police doesn't have extra activities. But I think that in itself hopefully doesn't create a problem. And actually it says that the school district has suspended regular classes and school activities until April 3rd, when actually many activities have been canceled all the way through June already. So some of that may need to be noted because of the extreme measures that have been taken, if we're noting facts. The other point I wanted to point out was on page 5, line 19. And we have the word severely, and again, we're trying not to create panic here since there are 14 cases in Riverside County, 14 confirmed cases, severely. And so we just need to be, I don't know, I just think that we need to be balanced, and I don't know that severely is a balanced word. On the top of page 6, we have shall be reviewed at least every 60 days, and just so that we talk about it, we don't have to wait 60 days. Since Riverside County Health Department has their, restrictions through April 30th.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about with legal on Friday was that if there's additional items that come up within, let's say next week, then we'll need to address them at that point. But I think by law, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, that's a requirement that the city council just reauthorizes it at least once every 60 days.
Okay, and then also on page 6, section 3.
Continuing item on your regular agenda. Obviously, if there's no need for an emergency after a certain period of time, you can cancel the emergency declaration. The law only requires you to review it once every 60 days, but it doesn't prohibit you from reviewing that as often as you like.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
If I could comment, if this could, since this is such a fluid situation, if we can just have this as ongoing for the time being.
I think that would be prudent.
Do you need to vote on that? The last thing is, well, not the last thing, but on section 3 on page 6, and we have the teleconferencing. Now, this is optional. Is that correct? It's not a mandate that people are not allowed to come to meetings?
So I think in terms of the social distancing,
For public.
so what we're trying to encourage is kind of leading by example, so encouraging the social distancing, so that's why we've included that on there, but I don't know that it's a
I'm
requirement.
asking, we are encouraging it, but it's not a mandate.
I don't know that it's a mandate.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to clarify. And then back to,
Hold on. Go ahead, Eric.
Only says that the council will implement it as reasonable and appropriate. So it just provides the ability for council to subsequently say, look, we really need to do some severe or deep social distancing. We might need to limit the number of people who attend our meetings physically. Adoption of the resolution does not impose that now. It just sets the groundwork in case you need to do that in the future.
excellent. And the last thing I have is on page 4, under the suspended certain provisions of the Brown Act. I feel like maybe the attorney can comment on this, or the city manager, that we're not trying to do anything, on the Brown Act as far as anything sneaky, or we're just trying to provide additional options that are not always available. Do you want to clarify with that, city attorney?
That is correct. The governor's executive order does not suspend the Brown Act. All it does is suspend certain technical rules with regard to using teleconferencing at council or commission meetings. And the intent of the governor's executive order was to make it easier for city councils to not only allow council members and staff to teleconference into meetings, but also members of the public to teleconference or participate in the meeting by other electronic means, similar to what one of your public speakers said earlier. It's not an intent to avoid the Brown Act, and the governor's executive order does say that to the extent possible, we should continue to comply with the Brown Act to the extent possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a suggestion. Carly, one of your comments was on section 1 on page 5, use of the word severely. Would the council be more comfortable with a phrase that instead of saying that severely impairs, that may potentially severely impair? Because as we pointed out, there are no reported cases in our jurisdiction. And there's only a small number of cases reported in Riverside County, 2 of which were people that got off of a cruise ship, and the other 10 are in Coachella Valley. Doesn't mean that it couldn't spread to our area, but we don't have any reported cases currently. So I would suggest that to address your concern on that, Carly, is that we modify that sentence to say that may potentially severely impair.
How about just potentially impairs?
I'd be okay with that too.
I just think that the extremity we just got to, bring it down.
Any opinion on that, City Attorney? I mean, we're talking about semantics.
The question was.
I'm sorry, I was talking over you.
He didn't hear the question.
The section
I couldn't
1.
hear the question.
Section 1 on page 5 that reads, the above recitals are true and correct, and based thereon hereby finds that the spread and potential further spread of COVID-19 constitutes a situation that severely impairs the public health. It's the word severely that we're discussing, and we're suggesting that in an effort to encourage calm and responsive behavior, responsible behavior that severely be replaced with the word potentially.
Yeah, that, unfortunately, I appreciate the council sentiments. That's the language that's in the Brown Act. And so if the council does not feel that you have a severe situation, then you don't have an emergency and you should not adopt the declaration. Otherwise, we won't meet the definition of an emergency in the Brown Act, and you won't meet the definition under the California Emergency Assistance Act.
Okay. Well, thank you for that clarification. That does raise another question, and probably for the city attorney, or maybe for our chiefs or our emergency services coordinator. It's also my understanding that one of the purposes of a local declaration, that it basically sets a point in time, starts the clock, if you will, as far as our ability to be eligible for reimbursement of any associated financial impacts. Is that an accurate statement?
That certainly isn't a reason in and of itself to pass an emergency declaration. The council needs to be comfortable that the facts and circumstances do constitute an emergency as defined in those two things in the law. I'm not a health official, nor am I an emergency official, so if you are concerned about that, you should inquire of your police and your fire chiefs. My understanding, based on my work with other communities and the reading I've done based on the CEC and the county declaration, is that there is at least an emergency situation in California and in the state of Riverside and your accompanying counties, or the county of Riverside and your accompanying county of San Bernardino, and that other jurisdictions within the city or within the county of Riverside believe that there's an emergency declaration or an emergency situation. It does not necessarily mean that there's an emergency in Hemet. So if you do not think that the facts that we've recited, the resolution, constitute an emergency within the city of Hemet itself, then you should call upon the police chief and the fire chief to provide you with additional information.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we have both police and fire chiefs here, as well as our emergency services coordinator. So looks like Chief Brown wants to comment.
Mayor, members of the council. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. City Manager, just to add clarification to the question at hand. The provisions of the Stafford Act, which are included in this declaration, allow us access to federal funding. So basically it's a portal for if we have any cost incurred or that we have yet to identify as part of supporting this, no matter how long it goes. It's part of the bureaucratic process, if you will, that allows us access to that federal funding offset. Those costs have yet to be tabulated. There's going to be direct and indirect costs. We don't know what that is. And I think we're following the lead and direction of the county, as well as the state authorities, and making sure that we're part of that process. For that reason, to ensure that if we do incur any associated cost with that could be personnel, that could be equipment, impacts, etc. That allows us that access to those dollars.
So, Chief, as far as maybe go over with us, and I'm sure that this would include all of our departments, but as you could see, what would be financial impact? I mean, we have first responders, we have, people that are hands-on responding to unknown situations that we need to protect. So what would be costs?
Well, there's direct cost, and we're doing that assessment now. So, for instance, personal protective equipment for both the police and our firefighters and our first responder partners. The cost of we've activated our EOC, so we have personnel costs that we've yet to tabulate. But let's say, for instance, we make a joint decision to stand up the EOC. There's going to be costs directly associated with that. We're currently at a management level, which is the lowest level possible. we plan on conferencing with our city manager later today and reassess that. I think the key to all this is it's fluid, so we just don't know. And again, I would echo the council. I think I've talked to a couple of you and share the same concerns that you've expressed. But the business side, we need to be prepared, and that's everything that you're hearing and being brought to you today is in preparatory for what we may have to deal with. Cost of additional personnel, there is, if we have an exposure, there's cost to the city in terms of our force protection. If they need to be quarantined, there's extremely a lot of dollars associated with that. San Jose Fire Department had an exposure. They have 77 of their personnel now on quarantine. 4 tested positive. So in very quick order, those types of impacts, we've been very fortunate and we haven't had to deal with that. Now what we are dealing with is the planning and making sure that, and that's what's before you today. We are directly involved with county health. We participate on conference calls twice a day with public health in the county. I also, as of Friday, am the duty officer for the next 3 weeks for the county, so we're getting plugged in operationally, public health. And over the weekend, we conference with Dr. Hanna in our medical direction, and currently Dr. Hanna is available to us 24/7 to address our local need, understanding that we want to make sure that we get facts, and we want to make sure that we're in the position to give you correct information, not Facebook information, but what are the facts real time. But the declaration, really getting back to the original point, deals with a formal process that allows us access to federal funding if that or other dollars should that need come up. And we're just being proactive with that, and I think the city manager has a comment on that.
Yeah, first off, I want to thank both chiefs as well as Kat for their being plugged in with the county with all of the resources above our level. They've done an incredible job to keep me in the loop and just be apprised of what's going on. I think Chief Brown really hit on something that is really significant. If we were to encounter a situation, and I'm not saying that it's as a result of one of our community members, but everyone has family members, they all have friends, they all have other people that they associate with. So if any of those individuals that may or may not reside in the city of Hemet potentially are in contact with someone that has that, then that puts those individuals at risk. And so there's the direct impact that is as a result of dealing with our community, but there's this also other interconnectedness that happens within just living and being a human. And so that's really what the chief alluded to, the instances where if an individual on the public safety side or even on the employee side interacts with someone that has that, then it creates significant operational issues for us. And so that is part of why this is before you, is that there are some things that we're considering or that we have to be concerned about, given that we just all don't congregate or interface with people that are just in our community. We interface with other people outside of the community as well.
Great. I like the fact that we are being proactive and not waiting for a problem, but since it's in our back door, it's at our back door, then we'll have a plan.
Yeah.
All right.
The other thing I want to add too, if the members on the conference line, if you aren't the city attorney, could you please mute your phone? We're getting a lot of background and comments from members of the public on that phone. So if you could just mute that, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, well, that addresses my question, so thank you. Chief Booth, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Good morning, Mayor and members of the council. We've had open lines of communication this weekend, and Fire Chief hit the key points. This is quickly evolving, so new information daily, we are receiving that, and we don't know what to expect, obviously. So that's where we're at right now. We'll continue these conversations with county and state officials just to make sure that we're on top of everything.
Thank you, and I do appreciate the press release that your department put out explaining to the public that they may see a little bit different manifestation of how the PD responds. So that's good information. Again, on the proactive side, letting people know what to expect is real important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any more comments or discussion from council on this?
Besides our emergency services departments, obviously any costs that are incurred by other public services that we have, right? Because we have our public works department, we have the library, we have even city hall. And so I'm sure that you're going to go through and figure out some, healthy people only in the lobby, please, or something, just to remind people about that. But then also having masks available if necessary, because there will be that one guy who comes through coughing.
That's actually a really great point. And one of the items of conversation that we're having right now with our E-team is making sure that members of the public are aware and know of the options that they have, whether it's to pay their bills online, through the website, so that they're not having to deal with our staff on a one-to-one basis. And so we're encouraging the use, or we will encourage the use and the expanded use of those operations so that they can not have to drive. I know we mentioned the senior citizens, so that they're able to take care of their business, but then also not put themselves at risk by getting in their car and driving around and all of that. So we'll be encouraging the use of all those mechanisms too.
And some sort of mechanism that if someone walks into City Hall coughing, they need to be masked immediately, even before they're told to leave, just as a protection. Okay.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion on the proposed resolution with the corrections noted.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Meyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Percival,
Yes.
Councilmember Wright,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Krupa,
Yes.
Mayor Brunn.
Yes,
Thank you.
that motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you for attending, and we will now adjourn into closed session. Okay, council has returned from our closed session, and our city manager is going to report out.
Thank you, Mayor. The council, legal, and I did speak, as well as our police chief and fire chief in closed session. And we will be closing the library until April 30th at the soonest, but we will be reevaluating that at least a couple weeks before that date. So the library will be closed immediately, and we will be reevaluating that in the future. Thank you, Mayor. Closed.
Services online are still available.
Thank you. So, closed to the public, but the services on the library will be available to the public, and we'll make sure to include any information related to some of those details in publications we put out to the community.
Thank you, city manager, and with that, we will adjourn till our next regularly scheduled council meeting on March 24th.